welcome everybody to the Glen Kuiper Show, All Giants, here on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Comments from you tonight are certainly welcome. I'm sure you guys out there, like me, were in a good mood about a half hour ago and not in a great mood right now, as we're going to recap what we just saw. Full disaster. We'll take a look at that National League wild card pennant race. We'll look at some things that the Giants will be curious about moving forward, looking ahead to 2026. And we'll give you a quick minor league update. We certainly like to do that once a month at least. So anyways, but as you know, our shows are brought to you by, starting with Tilden Properties. As an investor, one of the best places to put your money is California's multi-family real estate. When investing with Tilden Properties, you see cash flow with quarterly dividends while building equity in the real estate market. Bay Area based and family owned, Tilden Properties has been building investment wealth for their clients since 2008. Go to the website at tildenproperties.com or call 925-209-8558. And we're also brought to you by the Carrig Real Estate Team. Since 1978, they have been helping families buy and sell homes all across the Bay Area. With deep local roots and a legacy of client-first service, they are committed to delivering results with honesty, care, and expertise. Whether you're moving up, downsizing, or making your first purchase, trust the Carrig Real Estate Team to guide you. They've been serving the Bay Area with pride for over 45 years. Contact Mike Carrig today for a free home sale or purchase consultation. You see the website, carrigteam.com, or call 925-548-4132. So we appreciate the sponsors, Tilden Properties and the Carrig Real Estate Team. All right, so we got to get to the ball game tonight, folks. Nothing fun, that's for sure. Awful loss. I mean, listen, let's not beat around the bush. It was an awful loss. It was an awful loss. Let's start with Justin Verlander. Again, looked like he was going to get his second win as a Giant. It certainly was sitting that way. He left with a 4-1 lead. Verlander, when it was all said and done, goes 5 innings, gives up 3 hits, 1 unearned run. He strikes out 4. A couple thoughts from that. Listen, he threw a lot of pitches, but in the very first inning, there was an error by Ramos. He just didn't pick up the ball. That put a runner at second instead of at first. It ends up being a sacrifice fly. It ends up being an unearned run. If you want to get ticky-tacked, well, you give up an unearned run and you end up losing by a run. And I know that was way back in the first inning, but again, an error by Ramos that really, it was just, he just didn't pick up the ball. And the guy went from first to second after the base hit. But I thought one of the interesting things with Verlander, he struck out Joey Bart to end the 4th inning. They had a little rally going, a couple guys on, and he struck out Joey Bart with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. And the guys on TV did some research and found out that was the fastest pitch that Verlander has thrown since 2022. So I thought that was very interesting. So Verlander, again, pitches pretty well, doesn't pitch real deep into the game. Looked like he had a win, gets away from the Giants late. So Verlander, in his last 3 starts, he's thrown 15 innings, given up 10 hits, and 1 earned run. So let's give the guy credit. He's not pitching deep into games, but he did pitch. He has been pitching well, but in those 3 starts, just 1 win and a couple no decisions. So a little bit of a tough luck situation for Verlander. Kind of been that way a little bit with him all year, but today it was, things just got away late, unfortunately. Offensively for the Giants, what do they have? 7 hits, couple things that stood out. Probably could have done even more damage in that first inning. Giants don't score early very often, but man, they had the bases loaded in the first with nobody out. Chapman strikes out. Smith gets a hit, and Schmidt gets a bases loaded walk. So they have 2 runs in, still have the bases loaded at only 1 out. But this is the stuff that just drives me crazy. Jung Hoo Lee strikes out, takes a big giant swing, strikes out, doesn't put the ball in play. And then Bailey strikes out, again, doesn't put the ball in play. And when it's all said and done, the Giants got 2, but I think it's fair to say that they should have had more. They had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They had 6 straight at-bats with runners in scoring position. And from that, they got a couple of walks, they got a hit, but they had 3 strikeouts in that very first inning. So they did get a couple. And then they got the big hit from Lee, the triple. That gives them a 4-1 lead, and you feel pretty good at that point. So, but when it's all said and done, they strike out 11 times. They go 3 for 10 with runners in scoring position, which is pretty good, right? But one of those hits did not actually drive in a run. It was the Schmidt ball that went off the pitcher. So it was a hit with runners in scoring position. It did not drive in a run. That was in the 3rd inning, and the Giants ended up not scoring in that inning. I think the thing that probably hurt a little bit is after the Lee triple with knocked in 2, the Giants got just one more hit after that, and that was in the 5th inning. And the last 11 hitters for the Giants were retired by a Pirates bullpen that, quite frankly, if you can name the 4 guys who came into pitch today, go get in the lottery line. But those guys did their thing. And again, nothing from the Giants, really after the 5th inning. So, but you felt good. You had a 4-1 lead. So anyways, that's what happened offensively. Enough there. Plenty of opportunities. And, you think 4 runs is probably enough against a Pirates team that's just, quite frankly, not very good offensively, but that's not the case. Defensively, I talked about the Ramos error. And listen, I mean, it cost the Giants a run. And I don't care where it happened in the game. It cost them a run, even though it happened in the 1st inning. There was another error. Chapman made a low throw. Devers, I think more often than not, Devers probably picks that, but it was an error. But that did not cost the Giants. It cost Verlander more pitches, and quite frankly, it may have cost him, that. And there was a pitch that was called, should have been strike 3. It was called a ball and then he had to face 2 more hitters after that. So I think Verlander, with a little help there, and without that, the low throw, he may have been able to pitch another inning. And with the way that Giants bullpen is, stuff like that, can certainly make a big difference. But Devers made a nice pick at first. Bailey threw out a runner. So that's the kind of the good and the bad. But let's get to the late innings. A leadoff walk in the 7th, followed by a home run, a leadoff walk in the 9th, and that got the 2-run game-winning rally started for the Pirates. I think we all know about the leadoff walks. So Randy Rodriguez came in the 8th, threw a couple pitches. There was a throw-out at second, so he got out of that. But in the 9th inning, watching the game just like you guys are, a leadoff walk to McCutchen, and that right away gets you thinking it's never good. It's just never, ever good when you walk the leadoff hitter, especially in the 9th inning. And what was frustrating in that whole bottom of the 9th inning, the whole inning, Randy Rodriguez got ahead of every hitter. He got ahead of every single hitter, but he couldn't put these guys away. And I only remember, and if I'm missing one, you can correct me, but I only remember one swing and miss, and that was the strikeout of Brian Reynolds. And Randy Rodriguez is a guy, he gets a lot of swings and misses. We've seen it all year. So, I just felt like you could kind of sniff it early on that the guys were fouling pitches off. Guys were putting together really good at-bats, but there were no swings and misses. And that was a red flag for me. Again, we're seeing things that Randy Rodriguez usually doesn't do. And he usually finishes guys off, but he just did not look sharp tonight. And it showed. And then, as it went on, we sort of know what happened. But I have to say this is just, kind of par for the course. The guy who killed the Giants tonight, Jack Zawinski. And I remember Jack Zawinski had a huge series against the Giants. I think it may have been last year, but Jack Zawinski came into the game tonight with a 103 batting average. 103. Jack Zawinski. And what does he do? After a leadoff walk, he hits a 2-run homer against Carson Seymour in the 7th. 103 batting average coming in. Hits a 2-run homer to make it 4-3. Zawinski comes up with 1 out in the 9th inning. Rodriguez is ahead of him in the count. And he hits him. Jack Zawinski, a 103 batting average, a 2-run homer, and he scores the winning run because he got hit by a pitch after being behind in the count. Does that frustrate you? Because it frustrates me. But he was the hero tonight. Jack Zawinski. All right. So that's what happened tonight. Again, Carson Seymour, a couple innings. He gave up that home run. His stuff looks pretty good. The home runs are killing him. I think it's 5. I think I just saw 5 now he's given up in a very short time in the big leagues. Bivens got a couple outs in the 8th inning. And then Rodriguez, like I said, we see what happened there. So anyways, let's get some comments if there's any out there. Bake That Dough, we appreciate him checking in. The good people from Bake That Dough. We want to answer his questions. It's a super chat. At what point does Ramos just need a day or two? I don't know. And I'm going to get to this, maybe a little bit later on in the show. I'm very concerned about Ramos's defense. I really am. Because it almost seems like maybe it's getting worse. He's a really good offensive player and he plays hard. The defensive thing is an issue. I do really think his defense is becoming an issue. And that's something that needs to be looked at. I do. Now, I don't know if it's a day. Listen, it's a grind. These guys are grinding. Are the mistakes mental or, just maybe a lack of concentration? And we've seen that a little bit lately. So I don't know. But they are mistakes that are hurting the Giants. And any defensive mistake by any player, it's hard being a good team if you're not a good defensive team. We preach that a lot, and we always look back at good Giants teams. They always played good defense, and I think that's what the front office definitely wants to steer toward. But it always hurts you. It always hurts you, and so Elliott needs to get to work on the defense, and whether it's a concentration thing, whether it's I don't know, but there's a lot there to like with Elliott Ramos. We saw it. He had 3 hits tonight. He's a good offensive player. The question is he does he have the ability to get better defensively where he can be a cornerstone player for the Giants? I think that's a legitimate question that maybe needs to be kicked around. So Bake the Dough, we appreciate you checking in. So let's see. KP says Seymour has allowed 5 home runs in 10 innings. That's terrible. Ramos has too many errors defensively. And we did talk about that in the Ramos thing and the Seymour thing. So it is 5 home runs. That's the number I had heard as well. Let's see. Kovac says, but he had guys at 0-2 and couldn't close the door. I mean, that's the thing that stood out to me with Rodriguez in that 9th inning. He was getting ahead, but there were no swings and misses, and he couldn't finish guys off. And, listen, whatever inning you're in, you got to finish guys off, especially if you get ahead of them. And it's even more important, obviously, in the ninth inning, and that didn't happen. So, anyways, okay, let's move on to what we have next. We've kicked the game around enough, and it hurts, and it's just tough moving forward. I think the disappointing thing, anytime you lose a game like that, disappointing. But the Giants over the weekend went into New York and beat a really, really good Mets team 2 out of 3. Very difficult to do. This is a Mets team that has the best home record in all the major leagues. But it's just they could not carry the momentum over, which is super frustrating. But they played good baseball this weekend, and there was reason to say, "Hey, all right, you go to Pittsburgh. Let's pay the Pirates back for what they did last week," and they just couldn't do it. So coming up for the Giants, 2 more in Pittsburgh, then they come home and they'll play Washington. And I think what we all were hoping for, and again, we know that this is an uphill climb for the Giants, but you have to look at, where could momentum come in? Where could they get going? And I felt like, listen, you got the Pirates, and then you come home, you play the Nationals, and then after that, you have the Padres. Padres are the team you're chasing. They're a very good team. It's going to be difficult to catch them, but at least give yourself an opportunity to inch a little bit closer. But you just can't lose games like you did today. And so we will see the Padres. In fact, it'll be a week from tonight, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the Padres will be here. But the question is if you're 7 or 8 games behind them, it doesn't matter. I mean that gap to me is too big. Now, if you're 4 or even 5, at least you're in the thing. You're in the conversation. But things like tonight just crush you. The Padres tonight, let's see, what are the Padres doing tonight? They're in Arizona to open up a series. Padres have won 7 out of 8. The Giants have gone 2-4 against San Diego. Listen, that's who the Giants are chasing, but it's turning into the haul just keeps getting longer and longer and longer to chase the Padres because they're very good. Dodgers, have not played great, but Dodgers were 10-14 in July, so the Padres are looking at that. Padres are worried about the Giants. I got news for you. That's just reality. I hate to say it. Giants fans don't like it, but the Padres are not worried about the Giants. And that's just the way it is. They are looking at the Dodgers and they say we can catch them. So it's going to be that part of it. I think is going to be fun to watch. The Cincinnati Reds are an issue now. Reds are playing very good baseball. They're in this wild card thing, and what the Reds have is really good pitching. You look it up. Andrew Abbott, he was an all-star. Hunter Green, 100 miles an hour. Giants know how good he is. Nick Lodotto, a left-hander, is really good. Brady Singer, remember they got Brady Singer from the Royals? And then they just called up one of the best young pitching prospects in all of baseball, Chase Burns. He has struggled some, but he has the look of maybe being a star. They got Nick Martinez. They have really good starting pitchers. And so the Reds are a thing. The Reds are in this. Giants are chasing the Reds too. They've finished their season series. Giants and the Reds finished 3-3. So remember the tiebreaker thing if you want to get into that. But again, I don't know if that's even worth looking at. But the tiebreaker is your head-to-head record, against the other teams that you're going up against. And if you're 3-3, then the next tiebreaker is what's your record within your division. So in that case, let's just say hypothetically, just so you understand, if the Giants and the Reds were tied, right? And again, that's probably not going to happen because they're both chasing the Padres. But just for explanation purposes, if they were both tied, then the next tiebreaker would be what's the Giants' record against the National League West? What's the Reds' record against the National League Central? Whichever one is better, then they would win the tiebreaker. So anyways, that's a little look at the wild card situation, which is just slowly becoming a little bit more of a long shot, for the Giants. each day, especially when you lose games like you did today, and you just can't do it. So what I wanted to touch on today was, we're going to look ahead a little bit to 2026. We're not cashing out on this year, but I think it's important after the trades, and kind of what are we going to watch for in the final 2 months of this season, with an eye toward what we may want to see for 2026. Does that make sense? So I think that's important. I think that's just the situation that the Giants are in right now. What they need is a stretch to win 15 out of 18. I don't know that they have that in them. So my thought was, let's just kind of go down the order. Let's start with the rotation. You're going to have Logan Webb. He's signed for 4 more years. Robbie Ray is signed for next year. So you have strong core. You have Webb and Ray, 2 excellent pitchers. So that's a good building block. And again, just think about the rotation here. Landon Roop is on the injured list. He's going to be back. They'll be careful with him, but he has shown, I think, that he's legit. He's legit. Now he's going to have to learn how to get through a full season, throw 150 innings or whatever it is. But he's a legitimate guy. So you have him. I don't think Verlander will be brought back. So that gets you to your 4th and 5th guys. So now that's something to watch for. Carson Whisenhunt, we've seen him twice now. So we got to watch him a lot more. We have a lot more to watch him. But I think it's important if he gets this opportunity to pitch in the rotation, for the next 2 months or however long the Giants, have him in there, and they'll keep an eye on his innings, I'm sure. But I think it's a great opportunity to see, is Whisenhunt a guy for the rotation next year? I don't see Whisenhunt as a front end guy. I think he's maybe more of a back end of the rotation guy. And that's not a criticism, but I think he's a big leaguer. There's stuff there. We've seen it twice now. I thought he showed a lot of moxie in New York. You're pitching against a really good Mets team in New York, big crowds. It's crazy there. So it was good to see. So let's watch Whisenhunt closely and see, is he somebody that we can settle in for the rotation in 2026? Because if you can, that's a big deal. And then there's Hayden Birdsong. He has made a couple starts down in Sacramento. He's got, we know what he's got to do. He's got to throw strikes. When he throws strikes, he's got really good stuff. We saw success last year. We saw him struggle this year. Not uncommon for a young pitcher. Not uncommon for a young player. We see it all the time. So let's keep an eye on Birdsong. Can he get over the wildness? Get that feel back? Will he get back to the big leagues this year? That I don't know. He's not going to get back unless he's throwing strikes. But like I said, we're thinking ahead till 2026. Does Carson Seymour come into play? He had good success in AAA this year. He has not pitched great at the big league level. Giants just got a right-hander by the name of Blade Tidwell from the Mets. He's been in the big leagues this year a little bit. He's close to pitching in the big leagues on a regular basis. Will he be in the bullpen or as a starter? We don't know. So these are just guys that are in the mix. Or do you feel like maybe the Giants need to get a free agent? Maybe they need to spend a little money on another starter. So it's just kind of the look at the rotation moving forward. I think the rotation is in decent shape with the 2 big guys at the top, and then the young kids after that. It's just a matter of which one of those young kids is going to grab this. Is it going to be Whisenhunt? Is it going to be Birdsong? Is it going to be both of them? That's a nice future if you could have Roop and Whisenhunt and Birdsong and Ray and Webb. That's not a bad thing to look forward to. But we just don't know how these things are going to work out, and that's why we're going to watch closely the final 2 months. Or, as I said, is this an area that maybe you spend money in free agency, or maybe you make a trade? Who knows? But all in all, it's nice to have a couple big guns at the top of your rotation. Next up is the bullpen, and this is where I think it's interesting. I think the bullpen, with the trades that were made, and this is not uncommon. You see this almost every year, but I think uh, the bullpen's probably going to need, I don't want to say an overhaul, but it's gonna have a completely different look than maybe what we're used to, and maybe what we may even be seeing the final 2 months here. Is Randy Rodriguez ready to be the closer? We don't know. It's easy to say no right now because of what just happened, but the stuff is all-star stuff. So he's going to be part of this. But then after that, there's some questions. I think the guy that they got from the Mets, Jose Butto, he's a legitimate quality reliever. So he's going to be part of this thing. Is he a eighth inning setup man? I don't know about that, but he's a quality major league reliever. He pitched well for the Mets, and we're going to see a lot of him. And then where's Tyler Walker at? Or where's Ryan Walker at? Excuse me. Where's Ryan Walker at? Is he last year's guy? Is he this year's guy? That's a big question mark. Because if you can get Walker to back where he was last year, then you got a terrific closer. I mean, he was awesome. Okay, so again, these are questions. Eric Miller, I think Eric Miller's a big part of this. He's on the injured list now, the big lefty. Really good last year. Maybe not quite as good this year, but he's a quality lefty reliever that I think is part of what you're looking ahead to 2026. But then after that, it gets hazy. The Gage guy has looked good, but is he part of the future? Lucchesi, Bivens, you just don't know. And that's where I think it's going to get a new look, the bullpen. I think it's going to have a different look next year. There's a couple guys in AAA that I think may help. Trent Harris, a lot of talk about him, a right-hander. And then Braxton Roxby, who the Giants got in a trade. Giants like both these guys a lot, and they're both in AAA, so they're one step away. We could see them this year. I don't know, but they may be part of the mix. But again, this may be an area. Going into 2026 that the Giants may need to go get somebody, or maybe two. You can find a reliever in the free agent market, and you can find one on the trade market. So that I think the bullpen is an area that is going to need a little tweaking, maybe a little fixing, even though the bullpen's been really good this year. But again, Duvall's gone, Rogers is gone. How do these guys go the final 2 months where they've pitched a lot of innings? So, but changing your bullpen, fixing your bullpen, tweaking your bullpen, you do that every year anyways. You just do. That's what major league teams do. But I think that is an area that's going to need some of that moving ahead into into next year. So let's move offensively. You think about the infield, and I like this whole set. I think listen, you got Chapman, you know what you're going to get there. You got Adames, you know what you're going to get there. Devers is going to play first base a lot. He'll DH some. So the question there then is second base, and this is a great question because is Casey Schmidt the guy? Do we like what we've seen from Casey Schmidt, and could he be the guy moving forward? And my answer to all that is yes. I do think he is the guy moving forward. And again, it's still a small sample size with Casey. But in watching his at-bats are much, much better than they were last year, or even maybe, at the beginning of the year. He hits the ball hard. But what we're seeing too is less chase. He's not going out of the strike zone nearly as much as he did in the past. So there's a little better zone in on a spot. I looked it up. He has only struck out. And this is, again, it's just recently, but he's only struck out 6 times in his last 12 games. And he's only struck out 1 time in his last 7 games. So not only is he hitting the ball hard, but he's making contact. And he's got some juice. We've seen that. Defensively, continues to improve, terrific athlete. I think that's all he needs to do is continue to play second base, and he will continue to get more comfortable. And he's a good defender now, and I think he will get better at it. He's got a very strong arm, which helps turn in the double play. I am good And again, let's watch Casey Schmidt closely these final 2 months. Let's see if he can grind through the last 2 months where he's probably getting tired playing every day. Let's just see if he can do that, because that's what it takes to be an everyday big leaguer. But there's tools there. And, unless we see him fall apart here, and I don't see that happening, I wouldn't have a problem going into 2026 with Casey Schmidt as my second baseman. And I wouldn't have a problem with Christian Koss being your middle infield utility guy. I think Koss has done a nice job. So not a huge concern in the infield because, listen, Chapman's going to be there. Adames is going to be there. And Devers is probably going to be playing first base. And that's 3 pretty good players. And then you got Schmidt, evolving. So I'm good with that. And who knows? Maybe something great happens and maybe Bryce Eldridge gets up here. And you know what? And I said this on past shows. I'm okay with that. If you got Devers and Eldridge and they're DHing first base back and forth, switching back right, that's awesome. But we don't know when Eldridge is going to get here, So I'm good with the infield setup. I think you can win with that group. Outfield situation for me is a little different. Jung-Hoo Lee is going to be here. He's got a long-term contract. We've seen him be really good. We've seen him really struggle. Now we've seen him come back a little bit lately. But I think we do need to see more from Jung-Hoo Lee. I do feel like he's a decent player right now, but we need more from him. And I think there's more in there. He's still figuring this all out. Being a big leaguer at, in the States at its highest level. But he's going to be here. But again, I think this outfield thing is big. The Giants need to do right here. They need to make the right decisions. What do you do with Ramos? Do you leave him out left field and hope that he gets better? Do you think about DHing him some? I don't think the Giants want to do that. I really don't. He's a good athlete. I think there's potential for him to be a good defender. He needs to get there. But offensively, he's a pretty good offensive player. So that gets you to the right field spot, which to me is this huge spot where you have an opportunity to get better. Okay. Right field's not easy at Oracle Park, so you got to think defensively as well, but it's your spot. It's your spot to try to get better offensively there. Is that in-house? Is that Luis Matos? Is that Grant McCray? Is that, Marco Lucia? I don't know, but I'm just giving you the in-house guys. The young man they got for the Mets, Drew Gilbert, who from what we hear is a terrific defender, left-handed hitter. Is there enough there? Are those guys part of a right field solution? I don't know. Again, this could be an area where, you go get somebody or you spend some money. Easy for me to say, right? Spending other people's money. But I'm just going through this to just think about what are some hot spots where you're probably going to have to really take a look at this. And I think everybody sees the same hot spots. I think the bullpen is an issue. I think right field's going to be an issue. And you got to figure out defensively, how can we get better in the outfield? And then finally, this is a very interesting one for me, is the catching spot. We all know the Bailey situation. He's terrific defensively. He has struggled offensively a lot. Is that an area where the Giants would look to improve? Maybe not a whole new catching situation, but maybe get another catcher in there. Maybe a little more offensive minded that can get some starts. the backup catchers this year for the Giants really haven't done much offensively. So it's a whole position that has struggled offensively. The Giants, one of the kids the Giants got from the Yankees in the Duvall trade, Jesus Rodriguez. He is a catcher. He's now in AAA with Sacramento. He also plays some third base and some first base, from what I understand. And he's not catching right now. He had a little arm injury that's keeping him from catching. So he's doing mostly DHing, from what I've been told. But he's an offensive player, pretty good right-handed hitter. Is that a guy that can come up and help you be better offensively at the catcher's position? Does Bailey have another level offensively? Those are things. But again, I think that's a spot. I think that's a spot that you have to, look to improve, even if it's with a backup catcher who maybe could DH some. So, anyways, that's sort of my look ahead here a little bit at what we should watch for, what we should see what happens, and think about what do the Giants need to see, and where do we want to be, in the next, going into 2026, how right field, bullpen, do they need another starter? Who knows? But again, I think those are all legitimate questions. I want to check in with people who are watching and see what they're thinking. Ken says Giants have too many guys that should be DHs. I think there's a little something to that, but I don't think that's going to be the case moving forward, Ken. I think looking ahead to next year, I don't know that Wilmer will be back. Devers will, when it's all said and done, Devers will be fine at first base. I believe that. So I don't know. I think the DH thing will sort itself out. Bake the dosage. It's amazing what consistent playing time at one position can do for stability and confidence. I agree with that. And I agree with that in Schmidt's case. And you know what? I agree with that in Devers' case, playing first base. I think he wants to play. I do. I think he wants to be out there. So I think that'll help. Ken also says, why doesn't Matos ever get a real shot at playing every day? Melvin has never given him a real chance. Well, I get the frustration with Matos, but I'm not sure that he has showed a great deal at the big league level. I know he's had a few moments. I get that, but were you just going to sit Mike Yastrzemski down? Now, this I thought may have been an opportunity where he could play, but there's a lot of people in the organization, Ken, who really like Grant McCray. Now, we know what the bugaboo with Grant McCray is. He strikes out too much. But there's a lot of people in the organization, and I don't necessarily disagree with them, that if you just look at tools, just the baseball tools, we all know what they are, right? That feel like Grant McCray may have more tools than Matos. And I say that because McCray has stolen base speed. He's a guy who can steal bases. He's got great speed. Matos has decent speed. He's not a base stealer. Grant McCray is well above average defensively. Okay. He's better defensively than Matos. They both have good arms. They both have power. I mean, McCray's got good power. And are they going to hit for average? I don't know. We haven't seen that necessarily at the big league level. My point is I like both these kids. I think they both have a lot of talent, but I don't know that Matos has ever just grabbed it and ran with it. And in fairness to him, he hasn't necessarily got an opportunity. But it's hard to give kids opportunities when you're in the Giants' position where they're trying to win. This right now is an opportunity, but maybe it's an opportunity for Grant McCray. And again, I think Grant McCray is is a very talented kid. He just has to stop striking out. And that's super easy for me to say. I get it. Guys are throwing 100 miles an hour. But for him to stay in the big leagues, he has to stop striking out. And he has to put the ball in play more. Because when he does, he has pretty good action. We saw it in New York. We saw him, jump on a couple balls. And the ball jumps off his bat. But again, he's 2 for 13 with 8 strikeouts in his time back here in the big leagues. So that's frustrating because you see these kids and they really are talented. And Matos is the same way. But it's hard. It's hard at the big league level. So again, that goes back to the question, what about right field? What are you going to do next year? Are one of these kids the answer? We just don't know. Coach Johnson says McCray needs to go to the Casey School of Improving His Chase Zone. Yeah, and the thing, that's what we're saying. He knows it. Everybody knows it. The coaches know it. They talked endlessly with him in spring training. I was there. I was there for a month. They wanted him to show butt more, do that, which he has, worked on that. It's just it is what it is. So, anyways, let's finish the show. I'd like to give at the end of every month a little minor league update. This will be a simple one. And as you know, at the end of each month, I like to tell you who I think is the leading candidates for the Cy Young and the MVP award. We're going to put that video out sometime in the next couple of days, so you'll get to check that out. But and I apologize for the shadow that's following me around on the screen. That's doing the best I can to get rid of it. Okay. He's there. Anyways, let's do a quick minor league update before we kind of wrap this thing up. Hold on. We want to get our look official here. There we go. So, minor league update. We're going to start with Bryce Eldridge because why wouldn't we, right? But it's getting interesting with Bryce Eldridge. It's getting really interesting. Here's his numbers in AAA Sacramento. Now, he was in AA as well, but I'm just going to give you his AAA numbers. The big boy was played in 31 games in Sacramento. He's got a 248 batting average, but he's got 10 homers and 35 RBIs. So 35 RBIs in 31 games with 10 home runs. That's very good production. The strikeout's still high. We've been talking a lot about strikeouts today. He's got 38 strikeouts and 117 at bats. So that's a very high number. And he's going to strike out some. It's the power that hopefully will make up for what could be a decent amount of strikeouts. But over the weekend in the in the minor leagues, they don't play 3-game series. They play 6-game series for travel purposes. But over the last 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he went 5 for 12 with 3 homers and 8 RBIs. And then stretching it out a little bit, I like to do this. I think you guys know right now I like to do this. Last 12 games, Bryce Eldridge is 14 for 47. That's a 298 average. Listen to this. Last 12 games, 7 homers and 20 RBIs. And only 13 strikeouts, which is not, that number's down a little bit from, his year average as far as strikeouts. But so he's hot right now. But 7 homers, 20 RBIs in his last 20 games. This kid he's so interesting to watch hit because, there's that term in baseball called light tower power. Guys who just hit these moonshot home runs. And that's what he does. He just hits tank shots, left field, center field, right field. And it's so much fun to watch. He's playing every day. He's back healthy again. That's huge. And again, the defense is still a work in progress, but the offense, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. So we always like to give you what Bryce Eldridge is doing. And the last thing I want to do is talk to a few people. What is what is the position in the minor leagues that is probably the deepest? Okay. And there was a couple different things that I heard, but one of the, maybe the deepest position in the Giants minor league system is outfield. Okay. And I thought that was sort of interesting because we've talked about the guys at the high levels, McRae's in the big leagues, but Luciano's got 20 home runs this year. So the power has showed up for Marco. Still a work in progress in the outfield. Again, so we don't know where he's at as far as how close is he ready, but he's in AAA. We talked about Matos, right? Drew Gilbert is one of the players that they got from the Mets in the Rogers deal. Drew Gilbert is close to being big league ready. He's a left-handed hitter. He's got 14 home runs. He's got 19 doubles in AAA. He's in Sacramento now, left-handed hitter. Not a real big guy, but strong. And the thing with him is he is not a high strikeout guy. In fact, he does a pretty good job putting it in play. So where is he at in this mix? We've talked about the other guys. We need to throw Drew Gilbert's name in there. So anyway, there's your outfield depth at the upper levels of the minor leagues. But then you go to AA. You have Bo Davidson, a left-handed hitter. The Giants love this guy. He got moved up from high A. He's now in AA. And also Scott Bandura, another left-handed hitter who got moved up to AA. So you got two legit outfield prospects in AA. Okay. And then you go to San Jose, and outside of Bryce Eldridge, the guy that the Giants people talk about the most is probably Dakota Jordan, who's an outfielder in San Jose. And you want to talk about fun to watch. He's the kid that was a football player in college. I mean, he is having an unbelievable year in San Jose. And he was banged up a little bit, missed some time. Otherwise, I think he may have been moved up, to high A Eugene. But Dakota Jordan is hitting .315 with 12 homers and 77 RBIs and 27 stolen bases. His OPS is 877. He is in single A San Jose. San Jose also has a young man by the name of Carlos Gutierrez. He's very young. He's out with injury right now, but he was hitting .351. He was leading the Cal League in hitting. So again, he's only 20 years old. So this is, and I'm not even getting into, the Arizona Complex League, the Dominican Summer League, where that's where the real young kids are. I'm talking about single A, double A, triple A. And Giants people will tell you that they have great outfield depth in their minor league system. That and the other spot is lower level. Now, this is where, we're talking about the Arizona Complex League and some of the arms in the Dominican Summer League. Young pitchers. And these kids are really young. They're a long ways away. But a couple of them got moved up to San Jose from the Arizona Complex League. So that's an area that it may take a while, but young starting pitching and outfielders, maybe the two areas in the minor league system where the Giants feel like they have the most quality prospects. At least, that's what I'm hearing. So anyways, we like to give you, the little minor league update as best I can, talking to a few different people. But I do know that Giants fans, they like to hear about the minor leagues, and they like to hear how Bryce Eldridge is doing. And, quite frankly, who doesn't? I like to hear how he's doing as well. So that's it for our show. I do want to get back to our great sponsors, Tilden Properties. As an investor, one of the best places to put your money is California's multifamily real estate. When investing with Tilden Properties, you see cash flow with quarterly dividends while building equity in the real estate market. Bay Area-based and family-owned Tilden Properties has been building investment wealth for their clients since 2008. Go to the website, tildenproperties.com. Check it out. See what they do. You will be very impressed. These are smart people run in Tilden Properties. Give them a call at 925-209-8558. And also, it's the Carrig team. Since 1978, the Carrig real estate team has been helping families buy and sell homes across the Bay Area. Whether you're moving up, downsizing, or making your first purchase, trust the Carrig real estate team to guide you home. I did. My whole family did. And these people are awesome. They've been around since serving the Bay Area for 45 years. It's the Carrig real estate team. Contact Mike Carrig today. He's going to give you a free home sale or purchase consultation. Check out their website, carrigteam.com, or call 925-548-4132. Thank you to my sponsors, the Carrig real estate team and Tilden Properties. And thank you to all the viewers out there. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Jump aboard, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and don't be afraid to keep the comments coming. I go back after the show, and I like to check out the comments and read and respond to as many as I can. But hope you enjoyed tonight's show. We'll be back later in the week with another edition of the Glen Kuiper Show, All Giants. Hang in there, Giants fans. Better days are ahead. We'll see you later this week.